And he decided it would be cool to put rubbing alcohol in the toilet seat and light it on fire to get pictures of it when all the lights were off in the bathroom. Right? Like, you know, post them up. Everyone will think they're cool. So anyways, they do it, and he starts to smell like the toilet seat burning and melting. So he swipes it off, and then there's this big pile of rubbing alcohol on the floor, right? And he decides the best way to clean the rubbing alcohol up would be to light it on fire. So then there's like 4 feet of fire. And then after that, he decides the best way to get rid of the fire is to kick the rubbing alcohol into the hallway. And the hallways were carpeted. So it was the only time in the history of the seminary when, into college, the firemen came because there was an actual fire. Because he thought the best way to deal with the pile of rubbing alcohol was to kick it into the hallway and light the carpet on fire. He didn't use the fire extinguisher.
Did he actually become a priest?
No, he's in formation for religious meeting. So Prudence, just to review, Prudence regulates the best way for us to do something. It's kind of like, what's a good analogy? I should have came up with a good analogy before I presented an analogy. You can think of Prudence as like railroad tracks. The virtue, the destination is wherever you want to go, and you're the train. If you get off the tracks, you're not going to get there. If you're imprudent, the fact is you're just not going to accomplish the goals you have set out for yourself. You want to be a doctor? Do any of you want to be a doctor? Any of you guys want to be a doctor? Yeah. You have to study like a mad, because there's about 10,000 people in this country that are undergrad and want to be doctors, and only about 5,000 spots in medical schools. I just made those numbers up. But not everybody gets the medical school that tries. So you have to make prudent choices to get there. How many of you want to get married? Yeah. You guys want to get married? Most of you. You could want to be religious or something. If you want to get married, there's some things you can do that can make it impossible to do. There's divine intentions, right? One of them is, if it just doesn't work, you can't get married, right? You have to be able to have children to be married. It's one of the laws of the church. So if you did something to damage yourself, like some venereal diseases can be very damaging, then it becomes impossible to marry. You have to be prudent with your life. You have to make choices that are going to enable you to be there. If you rush into a relationship and think you're in love and marry the wrong person, marriage is that to his heart. You know, I mean, if that union doesn't work out, if you guys have to have a divorce, then you can't marry somebody else. And that's not the church imposing rules. That's not the church forcing you to do one thing or the other. But we know these things. I mean, they're in our hearts, and they're there in our catechism and the teachings of our church. And we need to make prudent choices now so that we can get there and we can accomplish those goals. Sure, we all make mistakes. And most of the times mistakes don't have any consequences. Sometimes they do. We need to make prudent choices like, you know, I'm a big guy. I'm 260 pounds. And I used to exercise a lot. And I still eat a lot. Being 260 pounds isn't great. I've had 2 knee surgeries. And I already have arthritis at 24. When I get up, I need to get my legs moving before I can walk. It's not prudent for me to continue to eat a lot like I do. I need to become prudent. I need to become temperate so that I can live a healthy life. I'm just hoping they come up with really good ways to replace knees. Because I'm going to need them. Okay, that's enough for me. Does anybody have any questions about all this?
Okay, what about
It's if there's a physical impediment. Well, no, it would also depend on all the consequences of it. Cancer, whatever it is. So what's your guys' surprise going to be? Who wants to see the dance?
We do both.
Yeah, we do both.
That would be imprudent. That would be intemperate.
I don't think so.
I think that's what I want
Here's the thing inside.
my hero better.
Can you talk a little bit about how people can build up prudence, get that sense, get that wisdom?
See, I wrote notes for my talk. I didn't bring them. I had the 23-hour adoration sign up in notes, and I left them both for my notes. So I had forgotten that. So virtue is a habit, and we grow into virtue by practicing it. Brush your teeth every day. It's going to be really easy to brush your teeth every day. Not only that, but when we practice a virtue, over time we want to do it. Right? We have these values and these desires, these attractions. And as we grow in virtue, our values will change and become in line with them. Sometimes we get this notion that when something is really, really difficult, it's worth more. It's better. So it'd be like, if I have to run a half marathon, it's going to be nearly impossible for me. If Cameron has to run a half marathon, he's going to run twice beforehand, then do it. He'd be like, well, that was a nice day out on the road. And he totally did that. For which one of us did the marathon have more value? Which one of us was the marathon a greater action? You think me? I would say the contrary, actually. And my marathon might have taken a greater effort, but Cameron has greater excellence in virtue, the virtue of running, exercising, than I do. And so we have this idea sometimes that if somebody maybe has never had a problem, has never struggled with something, then they don't have the virtue, they just never had to struggle. But in fact, having that disposition, that right ordering of the heart, is the greater good. Because that's our goal. Our goal is to have our hearts ordered rightly, or for Aristotle to be happy. For us Christians who go to heaven, when we get to heaven, our hearts will be in union and line with God's, in perfect union with God's. So when you grow in a virtue and a habit, over the years, it will get easier, and you'll actually want to do it. How many of you don't want to brush your teeth ever? I hate brushing my teeth. Some of us don't like brushing our teeth. Most of us do like brushing our teeth. If you brush your teeth every day, 3 times a day for like 10 years, you're just going to want to do it. Not the best example. I used to not like to brush my teeth now. It's true. I do it like once a day before. And how we grow in prudence is by practicing the virtue. You get better at it by doing it. You're going to screw it up. At times, the excess of the virtue of prudence is deliberating too much. You think about it so much that you never get to the point where you actually do something, where you act, where you make a choice. The lack of the virtue of prudence is to just do stuff without thinking, is to make a rash decision and jump into it. So you can think of, in a relationship, you'll have, you're in college, you think about relationships sometimes. The lack of the virtue of temperance or of prudence in a relationship would just be to go for the first guy or girl that seems interested in you, regardless of where their life is, of what their faith is like, of what their values are. Just to go for it because finally somebody. And we can all relate to that sense. Okay, so that's how it can be imprudent in a relationship, because you can get in that guy can just be bad for you. There's a lot of people in relationships where there's beating that happens, or emotional abuse, or the guy that's just completely emotionally absent. You can get yourself in all kinds of situations you don't want to be in. And then the excess of that over-deliberation could be, you just think about it and worry about it, to the fact that you never find that perfect guy. Mr. Perfect never shows up. Or from the other perspective, the guy and the girl have been dating for like a decade, and the girl's like, when is he going to propose? And the guy is like, well, I'm not sure yet. Well, maybe, I don't know if it's going to work out, I don't know if it's the right time, is she the right person? He just keeps deliberating. The virtue of prudence lies in the middle. So we have deliberation of finding out what the good is, but then also decisiveness. The power of command. That once you know what the good is, you can do it right away. If you don't do it, it's not a virtue. Does it help you?
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Okay.
Would you say like being excessive and accessibility or being improved?
What do you say?
Is being overly excessive in deliberation being improved, what our culture calls improved? I think that being improved is kind of a title to get people to think it's uncomfortable, because they don't follow all their passions and their whims, their desires. Some people could over deliberate to the point of never acting, but I don't think it's the same thing. Okay, well, let's move into our discussion time. Could the first, third, and fourth tables turn around with the group behind them? And then the people in the back gather in the middle.